A desert planet with twin suns.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Use my knowledge. Much to learn. You still have.
Welcome back to Twin Sun Talks, folks. I'm your host, Jonah Liu. Thank you so much for listening, and welcome to this week's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting concept about how the Clone Wars almost ended in peace. So, without further ado, let's dive into ARC Trooper training.
Gentlemen, who wants to be an ARC Trooper? I do, sir!
Now, the story in question that we're going to be talking about today comes from a 2-episode arc in the Clone Wars, and now that's from Season 3, Episodes 10 and 11, and the episodes are called Heroes on Both Sides and Pursuit of Peace, respectively. And before I get into the meat of the episode, I just want to establish that the Clone Wars was a galactic conflict between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, also known as the Separatist Alliance. And now, the Separatists seceded from the Republic because of the corruption and oversight in the Republic, and essentially the continued inability to provide aid to fringe systems. They felt like they focused too much on the core worlds and didn't go out enough in their outreach and in their humanitarian efforts. So during the Clone Wars, the Republic moved to commission more clones to be produced to keep them from being overwhelmed by the Separatist droids, and seeking to avoid prolonging the war, Padme Amidala, along with some other senators, sought to initiate peace negotiations with the Separatists. Now, there were some issues with this because it was illegal to travel into Separatist space if you weren't a military officer, and it was also illegal to contact members of the opposing government. So senators in the Republic were forbidden to contact senators in the Separatist Parliament. So essentially what she did was she used Ahsoka Tano's clearance as a military commander to travel to the capital planet of Raxus, capital of the Separatist Alliance. And they met up with one of Padme's old friends named Mina Bonteri. They were both senators in the Republic at the time before the war, and then Mina Bonteri, who represented the planet of Onderon, seceded from the Republic, and therefore they hadn't talked in years. Now, these talks between Padme and Bonteri ultimately led to Mina pushing for peace negotiations within the Separatist Senate. But before I get into that, I think that this episode provides a lot of interesting context for why the Separatists seceded in the first place. Now, you see that essentially they thought the Republic was corrupt, and then the war consequently only legitimized their fears about the Republic, and that it was power-hungry and only worried about its own power and influence within the galaxy. It didn't really care about its citizens. Now, Mina Bonteri's wife and the father of her son, Lux Bonteri, who's another very interesting character, was killed by clones during a Separatist or during a Republic raid on a Separatist outpost. And so this is even more reason for them to dislike the Republic. Lux, like I said, is a very, very complicated and interesting character, and I think I might go through a whole character profile for him because he's really fascinating. And I hope that we get to see more of him. He's kind of a little love interest for Ahsoka. It's really cool. Go watch the Clone Wars if you haven't already. This is my standard plug for that. But that being said, Mina Bonteri pushed for peace negotiations within the Separatist Parliament and actually won over the majority. Like the Separatists were like, yeah, let's have peace talks. And peace talks were being voted on within the Republic when a Separatist plot was hatched. Now, while this was all happening, demolition droids infiltrated a Coruscant power reactor. Now, these droids were sent by General Grievous, and they were disguised as maintenance droids. So that's how they got past all of the security, the clones and all that sort of stuff. But they're essentially walking bombs, and they detonated, causing a massive power outage on Coruscant. This is the first attack on Coruscant in thousands of years because it's so heavily fortified. It's the capital of the Republic. It's essentially suicide to try to go after it. But this attack derailed the vote, and it was assumed to be a Separatist attack. Now, the Separatists also accused the Republic of assassinating Mina Bonteri, when, of course, it wasn't the Republic at all. It was the Separatists behind the scenes, Separatists, more specifically Count Dooku and Darth Sidious, who didn't want these peace negotiations to completely override their grand plan for the galaxy. So whenever Padme explained what she had done to Chancellor Palpatine, he kind of pulled a couple strings and had Mina Bonteri have a very tragic accident. But that being said, this completely derailed the entire peace negotiations. But the story doesn't end there, because after many intimidation tactics leveled against those opposing the bill to commission new clones, these are the likes of Anaconda Farr and Bail Organa, as well as Padme Amidala. There are these bounty hunters that are going after them and beating them up, essentially to intimidate them into not voting against the bill, intimidating them out of voting against the bill to commission new clones, which people like the Kaminoans really wanted, because obviously that means more money for them. But after all this, Padme Amidala is very badly injured, so is Bail Organa, and Padme ends up rallying the Senate behind a sentiment to remember those who they are ultimately fighting for. Remember the people of their homeworlds and the people who are suffering because of the war. It's not the people on Coruscant who are suffering because they're away from all the conflict. It's the people in the galaxy who are really suffering, and to remember that this war is affecting them more than it's affecting anybody else. And to essentially consider that when voting on this bill that will prolong the conflict seemingly indefinitely, because you're focusing on producing more weapons of war rather than seeking actual legitimate peace and actual resolution to the conflict. So, with that speech, she actually ended up convincing a majority of her peers to vote against the bill, which was, while they weren't able to achieve peace, it was still a great victory for those who were against prolonging the war. And I've already done an episode about those in the Senate who were essentially forming the Rebel Alliance before the Clone Wars, or before the rise of the Empire, or before anything else. It was essentially another secessionist movement that was against Palpatine's increase in power and the waning democracy within the Republic, the growing authoritarianism, and essentially the imminent death of the democratic regime that they were trying to protect in the war. And people like Bail Organa, Padme, Mon Mothma, all those who end up becoming very prominent rebel leaders were involved in that. And this is kind of a stepping stone towards that. So that's about all that I have for this episode. It's a bit shorter, but I thought that it was a very interesting topic to cover. And I felt like it was worth mentioning because I watched these episodes with my brother the other week, and I thought that they were just it was fascinating to see the sort of political side of Star Wars portrayed in such an intriguing way. And I would highly recommend you watch these episodes if you haven't already, because I left a lot out. There's a lot of little nuance that is really entertaining to watch, so would highly recommend. But this wouldn't be a proper episode if I didn't leave you with just a little bit more. So this is less of a fact and more of an observation from the episodes End of Pursuit of Peace, which is the second episode in that 2-episode arc. We are given a little monologue by Palpatine where he's talking to his Grand Vizier, Masameda, and it's very interesting. It's pretty eerie too, but I would recommend you watch these episodes, obviously, so you can experience this. It's an interesting and kind of unconventional end to a Clone Wars episode where he's talking about the nuance of war and how the words of a simple senator can change the course of everything. And you see that he's genuinely annoyed by Padme's victory. And I think that it's really, really fascinating how it shows that regardless of any Jedi or Separatist wins on the battlefield, the most impact in his eyes And the thing that sets him back the most is done in the political theater. And it was done by this humble senator from Naboo. And I just think that that's amazing. And I think that that's really funny that he's really like, Jedi could win a couple battles, Separatists could win a couple battles. I'm still up here being the puppet master behind everything. But then Padme comes along and essentially just completely messes everything up. And he's like, well, crap, I can't do anything to retaliate. Because he can use brute force in the war, but he can't really do anything without showing his hand in the Senate. So, just a really cool thing. Once again, watch the Clone Wars if you haven't already. Do it. Do it. That said, that's about all that I have for the episode. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Twin Sun Talks. Been posting a lot of fun reels over there, so make sure to check those out. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you're not an Instagram person. My reels are also up there as shorts. It is Twin Sun Talks Podcast. And then make sure to follow and listen on any streaming platforms. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. And yeah, that's about it. You've taken your first steps into a larger world. May the Force be with you, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Bye, friends.